Let's talk about all of this with Matthew Latzer. He's a former Labour Party advisor and joins us now. Good afternoon to you.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. Interesting to get you on while the Prime
Pleasure.
Minister's on. Of course, he was supposed to do this lunch at
Yes,
11:30. I think we should always be a bit. You try and remember these things always run late.
they do.
11:30. There wasn't even anyone on the platform. But let's just look. Just. I mean, we're going to talk about Labour as well. Obviously, there's some announcements from them today. In terms of this pledge to cut taxes, there is some evidence. In some of the polling, some of the more detailed sort of focus groups and polling, that the Tories are the tax cutting party, even if they've been the tax raising party for the last few years, that is cutting through with some voters. Is it a big enough dividing line? Do you think that is something that Labour should start getting worried about?
No, absolutely not. I mean, Julia, what we've seen today is the biggest unfunded set of proposals since Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, where's the magic money tree is back, but now
I
Rishi
thought it was
Sunak
in
thinks
your
that it's
garden.
sorry.
I thought it was in your garden at Labour.
Oh well, no, me and Jeremy don't garden together. I can assure you of that.
That sounds like a terrible euphemism.
Absolutely. Well, we know what Jeremy's reputation is, but I'll keep it on track and say, look, Tories can talk about cutting taxes all they like. Taxes are at a 70-year high. And crucially, they cannot say what they're going to cut to pay for this 2p cut in national insurance, because they have actually set out a whole series of spending proposals. Most of them targeted at the over 65s. Why? Because the over 65s are the only group which show any sign of backing the Tories, although they're behind even there. This
They
is an
also turn
absolute
out to vote, which younger voters don't.
no, they
They tweet
absolutely
a
do. And look,
lot.
there should be no complacency in the Labour Party. And what you'll see over the next 3 weeks is a laser-like focus on turnout and getting out the vote in the political jargon. But the idea that a 2p cut on national insurance from a party that's put taxes up to a record high and has no idea how it's going to pay for it is going to be a game changer is daft. It isn't.
In terms of the spending, though, we've had this sort of £2,000 extra taxes under Labour claim from, I mean, they're doubling down in the Tories. Everyone's pointed out this is nonsense, whether or not there was input from the Treasury officials or not, that this figure's nonsense. It's over 4 years, so it's £500 a year. But actually, again, it's what you input into the calculations. The same sort of input the calculations put in would actually come up with £3,000 of extra taxes under the Tory party. So that's a. Do you think, though, that actually you both major parties and the small parties as well are being hit by the fact that voters no longer trust any of you? And when your leader Keir Starmer says things like, I have no plans, and Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, I have no plans to raise this or that tax, and says we won't raise income tax, we won't raise VAT, we won't raise national insurance, whatever. But actually, you know as well as I do, the thresholds mean that more and more people are going to be dragged into tax and dragged into higher rates of tax, and that saying I have no plans is code for when we get in and we see how bad things are and we realise we're going to have to be slashing public services because of the extra demands on them coming in the next few years, we're going to put taxes up. We ain't just going to tell you. That's what voters hear.
I think you're right. There's huge cynicism from voters, and you can understand why. A million people paid higher rate tax under the last Labour government. 8 million people are set to pay higher rate tax under this Tory government. So remember those Tory posters from back in the day with, Labour's tax bombshell on nurses, teachers, police officers, car workers. Well, those are people who are being dragged into higher rate tax because of the Tories freezing the thresholds and hoping that we don't notice while they try and dangle this national insurance cut. But I think there is cynicism. I think Labour is clear it's not going to increase the core taxes, national insurance and income tax. I think you're right. I think the truth of the matter is, as we've seen this week, Labour can't rule out doing things like increasing capital gains tax, taxes that a lot fewer people pay and a lot wealthier people pay because the country is in a bad financial position.
Okay, I mean, that's the. I mean, we certainly are in a bad financial position, but as we heard from a Tory MP earlier, they're saying, well, it'd be in a worse position if Labour were in charge. Just want to bring you, while we've had the Prime Minister on stage in Silverstone announcing his election manifesto, we've also had a video posted by Nigel Farage, the Reform UK leader, on his X account, former Twitter account, of him on the Reform UK campaign bus in South Yorkshire with a member of the public throwing debris at him repeatedly. Now, for those who are watching, you'll be able to see that on YouTube on your connected device. For those who are on the radio, as a man with a black backpack and a red top, running away actually from police and security. Nigel Farage is on the top of this open deck bus, and this man just grabs some debris from what looks like a building site, some scaffolding, some debris from a building site, and throws it. Nigel Farage has to duck as it comes racing over his head, and then he goes to grab another piece of debris as well, and then is chased after and I think eventually apprehended by some security people, certainly someone in high vis, whether they were police or other kind of security, we don't know. Right, difficult to see right now. In fact, I think they were police, judging by the look of it, but he certainly flees away from the scene. Matthew Latzer, your thoughts on this? This comes after the milkshaking last week, which apparently is now a verb in our political discourse. This is unacceptable, is it not?
It's completely unacceptable. It doesn't matter what you think of any particular politician. I don't agree with Nigel Farage on much, but he has an absolute right to campaign. The milkshake was bad enough because obviously it could have been something a lot more serious than a milkshake. And the fact that we saw that guy there, quite openly and quite clearly throwing builders' debris at Nigel is absolutely appalling because, it's just completely wrong. We cannot see our politics come to this. And luckily the guy's face was fully visible. He looks like he's been arrested and the evidence is pretty clearly there, so we can expect something to happen to him.
Idiots are us. But this is the thing, the normalisation.
Absolutely.
But look, political figures on L sides last week when the milkshake was shown on Nigel Farage, I thought came straight to it. Labour, every party came and spoke out about that. And yet we did see some of the sort of left-wing commentators, the smiling, the joking. I saw a lot of broadcasters being very sort of dismissive of it. A lot of people saying that, it was orchestrated. But I mean, they are wrong, aren't they? Because we know, you know as well as I do, the death threats, the rape threats, other threats of violence, the damage to people's situations, MPs that are getting wearing stab vests while out campaigning. This is not a laughing matter.
No, absolutely. And, we saw, some of the people who perpetrated attacks have said, it's just a bit of a laugh. It isn't a bit of a laugh. If you're a politician or you're somebody who's working for a politician, it's actually incredibly frightening, not just when it happens, but the very threat that is acceptable. The idea that's acceptable is completely wrong. So any kind of so-called left-wing comedian or commentator who's been sneering away is just completely wrong. I mean, that could have caused a very serious injury to Nigel if he hadn't ducked. And we could be in a very different situation. Politicians need to be silenced by their arguments, not silenced by intimidation. And we can't see that wherever it comes from and whoever it's aimed at. We need an open debate, and that doesn't happen when people are lobbying whatever it is at politicians they don't like.
Hear to all of that. Can I ask you though about what Sir Keir Starmer had to say ahead of this Conservative Party manifesto launch? He accused the Tories of acting like his former boss Jeremy Corbyn with their manifesto. He told broadcasters that all his own plans for Labour are fully costed and funded. There'll be no rises in income tax, insurance or VAT under Labour. He says none of our plans require tax rises. And he talked about the attacks from the Tories, saying this is coming from a party that put tax at the highest level since for 70 years. And they're building this sort of Jeremy Corbyn-style manifesto where anything you want can go in it and none of it is costed. It's a recipe for more of the same. It's a bit rich for Keir Starmer, who sat in Jeremy Corbyn's cabinet, campaigned for him to become Prime Minister, shadow cabinet, to become Prime Minister at two elections, 2017 and 2019, to then say this sort of Jeremy Corbyn-style manifesto where anything you want can go in it and none of it is costed. He campaigned on that manifesto. Gosh God, in 2017, almost got Jeremy Corbyn elected on that manifesto. Basically, what your leader, Keir Starmer, is saying right now is, and we were lying all the time. I mean, is that a message you want to go out to voters?
Well, Keir's been absolutely clear on changing the Labour Party. Jeremy Corbyn is not a Labour candidate. He's not a member of the Labour Party.
That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. Keir Starmer campaigned for him to become Prime Minister on the same manifesto. He didn't go on television and say, sorry, none of this is costed. It's not true. He's saying now he knew it was lies.
Yeah. Well, Julia, remember in that manifesto...
Is he still lying?
in the Corbyn manifesto, there were a lot of tax rises to pay for a lot of things. I actually think Keir's been a little bit soft on the Tories there, because unlike Jeremy, they didn't, and then the voters had the choice if they wanted to vote for Jeremy Corbyn in tax rises, and clearly in 2019 they didn't. What the Tory manifesto does is it has all the Jeremy Corbyn style spending promises and nothing to back it up. It literally is the magic money tree. It is imagining. I mean, the Tories keep saying they want to get rid of national insurance. If you get rid of national insurance, that's the entire health service or the entire state pension gone. This isn't trimming fat. This is taking tens of billions of pounds out of the public services that your listeners and viewers rely on.
Can I just ask you just finally about the announcements today from Wes Streeting, your shadow health secretary? They're pledging 100,000 urgent child dental appointments. Where are you getting those dentists from?
So it's about getting more NHS capacity from dentists who at the moment. Well, because we have dentists who won't work in the NHS at the moment, who are only doing private work. There are scores of dentists, people up and down the country will know that from their own experiences, who can do that. It isn't, it's not the biggest target in the
100,000.
But Julie, that's why it's only 100,000 and not 10 million, because you can't magic dentists out of thin air, but you can try and get some extra capacity out of dentists who aren't doing NHS work, but who are doing private work. Right. So it's realistic, targeted, and
by paying them more. You'll be paying the private rates.
Extra capacity, yes.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'm just checking. And then also Labour.
It's about. I mean, 100,000 isn't. It's not as many dental appointments as we would like to see extra for children, but it's a realistic first step.
We've got about
by clamping down on tax loopholes and the non-doms.
Got 10 million plus children. Many of you have not had a dental appointment ever in their life. Exactly. Some of those younger children.
It's not the end of it, but it's the first thing you can do in the first few months of a Labour government.
Okay.
And that's the thing about Labour. It's being realistic and not promising the earth which you can't
Don't promise too much because you'll disappoint. Indeed. Labour also is saying they're going to ban under 16s from buying energy drinks. Look, I don't think under 16-year-olds should be drinking these high caffeine energy drinks. Is this really the number one issue facing the youth of the nation or the health of the nation? And why does everything Labour want to do always ends up with something being banned?
I'm not in favour of banning things for the sake of it, but I think that that everybody widely, as you say, agrees that a sale of any drinks to kids is a bad idea. In terms of the number one priority, no. Look, Labour set out a huge range of policies in this election, but in terms of children, teeth extraction is now the number one cause of children being admitted to hospital. I think it's under the age of 10.
That's because you're not allowed to have a tooth extracted outside of hospital. That was a change in the rules.
Well, okay. Well, I bow to your superior knowledge on that.
Tom Slater pointed this out earlier.
Okay, so I mean, but what we need a better dental service for children, because if you talk to teachers, children with bad teeth can't learn properly. It has knock-on consequences and costs more in the end. So it's not the only priority the country has, absolutely not. But is it a sensible and good thing to do as part of a wide range of package for a Britain that looks better? Yes.
All right, then we'll have better teeth anyway. Matthew Latzer, former Labour advisor, thank you. Covered a lot of ground there. Really appreciate that. Just a reminder, of course, we've spoken to Tory representatives, Green representatives. We'll talk to representatives of all the main parties throughout the week.